What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And you can always find us on our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. And today's guest is just going to be so much fun. His name is Dan Delaney, and he's got a bit of history with Jason. He's a total rock. I'm going to just call him a total rock nerd, and I mean that in the most respectful way. He is one of these guys that studies albums inside out, reads all the liner notes, knows the producers, knows the song sequence, can recite all the lyrics to any song you pick out of a hat. I mean, it's crazy. And he's got his own YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel, he does album reviews and commentary. And it's really, really well done.
He's a great sort of like reference. Like
He's
a walking rock library.
He is, yes.
Yeah.
And his reviews are really well done. They're, it's obvious that he's passionate about hard rock and heavy metal.
We need to change his name to Dewey Decibel. The Dewey Decibel system as opposed to the Dan Delaney system.
Yeah, and he says his YouTube channel. We'll get into this during the episode, but he goes by Danbowski on
one word,
YouTube.
word, Danbowski. Yeah.
So instead of searching for Dan Delaney and getting a million returns, go directly to Danbowski.
Yeah, and look for a stop sign that says "Say no to drugs." And yes to tacos.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's another way you can find Danbowski, aka Dan Delaney, YouTube channel. Now listen, let's go ahead and reveal. We talk about this in the episode, but Dan actually wrote me a fan letter in the 90s.
Right.
And he was very articulate, and it made me. And I mean, I don't remember receiving fan mail that I decided I'm not writing them back because of something they said. I tried to send everybody something, a postcard. Hey, thanks for writing. Well, this I don't have the letter anymore. Dan, still knowing Dan, he has the letter I sent to him.
He says so. Yeah.
Yeah. So. No surprise when you meet the guy.
This is the level we're talking about,
right?
Yeah.
So, which is great.
Exactly.
He wrote me in the 90s, and it was interesting, and he was just a fan, and he talked about how he loved Dangerous Toys. It was pertaining to Dangerous Toys. He got the address off the, of the record label off of the. What a novel idea, off the record. He looked at the back of the record and found, I'm going to write to this address. Can be done, ladies and gents. Better than an email, I think. It's more personal. It means that you care. And we just sort of became friends. Long distance, we had never met. So it's going to be exciting to actually talk to him in real time.
Yeah.
There is a, he's from Toronto, and he lives in Mexico and has been in Mexico for 15 years. So it's almost like Talk Louder Podcast got this exclusive on his experience and opinions, and shed light on a lot of interesting things that I didn't even realize were going to be interesting, just about concert life and the scene and on a daily basis there on the day of a big concert. And we're gonna talk a lot about that. I really think I wanted to throw this out there too. Our producer Jared Tuten, it was his idea to have Dan as a guest, and it's like some people might be listening going, well, who's this guy? What band is he in? What does he do? And, much like the Sean Weingartner episode and the, kind of the Frank Meyer. Frank Meyer's in a bunch of bands, but he's also an author, et cetera, right?
Right.
This is similar to those by way of, well, I mean this with respect. He's a fanboy, He's a walking rock and roll encyclopedia. That's almost enough criteria right there.
Right.
But the fact that there is a connection, and that he has this channel where he'll go, he has a segment on his YouTube channel where it's called I Love This Album. And he'll talk for an hour about how much he loves this, and he sings the lyrics. He like touches his head, and the next thing you know, all the lyrics are coming out. He's not singing them to you. He's just
reciting
reading them off to you.
Yeah.
And he's an English teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of cool stuff about this guy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things we tend to do on this show is a lot of our guests are musicians. So the conversation tends to lean towards their art and their music and that sort of thing. But every once in a while, we get someone who is much like me, who's just a fan, and they express their fandom in different ways. Some people have podcasts, some people have a YouTube channel, some people write album reviews. Some people have a local television show, whatever. And Dan is one of those guys. And I almost get as much joy listening to just an average guy who happens to be a rock freak as I do having an artist on the show who's got, 10 albums in my collection over there, So it's really cool when we get just kind of a guy who, might not recognize his name, but you're not going to forget him after you're introduced to him, because he's just going to blow you away with his passion for rock and roll.
Yeah, he does this. He does this thing where he'll do a band's entire catalog, and he confesses that he's a huge Motorhead fan, and if our listeners, anyone out there, of course, are Motorhead fans, and of course I know a lot of you are. Motorhead has a lot of records out.
Yeah.
So he's probably trying to fit it in at least an hour. I don't know how many Motorhead records. I've got a stack, as long as my arm of Motorhead CDs and vinyl. I can imagine that it took a while. I haven't seen his episode of on his channel where he's doing that, but
I have.
Oh, you have?
And
How long did it take him?
Well, so here's the thing, and this is the beauty of Dan. So he reviewed every single Motorhead record, and I don't know off the top of my head how many albums that is either. But the segment, if I recall seeing it, was somewhere in the 32-minute range.
Okay.
So what I'm saying here is this man is very concise. He can give you a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and it all sticks. And that's an art, man. I'm here to tell you, that's not easy to do.
Well, to do Motorhead's catalog in 32 minutes flat without stuttering, that's some serious rock nerd going on there.
Yeah,
it probably helps that he's talking all day because he's a teacher,
Yeah, exactly.
He does that. He does catalogs, but he did the Broken Teeth catalog.
Yes, he did.
So he did and that seemed like it went on forever. So that was only like 8 or 9 records, but
I think the Broken Teeth one might be longer than the Motor.
Why? How did that work?
Maybe he's just a bigger Broken Teeth fan. I don't know.
I don't see how that's possible. What's up, Dan? How you doing?
Jason and Dave, how are you guys?
Doing
Good.
well, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show today. How are
Right
things
on,
in
man.
Mexico?
Surprisingly, I'm sitting in front of my window and I'm looking at clouds, which is a rare thing. We get about, in my part of Mexico, they say about 350 days of sun a year.
So you were telling us about the weather in Mexico. You got some clouds right now. Do you think it's going to rain?
We're in what they call the rainy season now, which means it's not like rainy season in some parts of the world where it rains every day, all day. Usually, it's amazing here. The weather is the rain is almost exclusively at night. It's very rare that we have rain in the middle of the day. So it's possible that it'll rain later today, but probably when it's dark. So
You're talking
do your daily activities.
I guess we are kind of throwing gas on the fire, but this has turned into a group discussion. Like you live on a cats are welcome here. That's fine. Hey, hi,
There's my
kitty.
cat.
Man, that's a pretty kitty. It kind of sounds like we're talking like you live on another planet.
We're not too far away. I mean,
No, we're not. A few
we're
hours.
just I guess I guess in kilometers, sorry to go metric on you guys. I guess we're
Yeah.
only about 800 kilometers apart, maybe
Yeah.
500 miles. Not
Are
too
you
far.
in Mexico City? Where are you?
I'm close to Mexico City, about let's say in miles, probably about 50 miles south of Mexico City.
Okay.
About an hour
Okay.
by car.
So
Okay.
I understand you're I don't know if you were originally from Canada, but you started off in Canada and now you're in Mexico. I think you just said for the past 15 years. What took you from Canada to Mexico?
Yeah, I've lived here. I'm from Canada. I was born in Montreal, Quebec, French Canada, Quebecois, but I lived most of my life in and around Toronto. But I've lived in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Like I said, about an hour south of Mexico City, for 15 years. This week was my 15-year anniversary. I think most people, if you talk to that they live in a different country, it's usually for three reasons. One, for a job, for a career. Two, probably maybe they're studying, they're doing a PhD or a master's or something. In my case, it was for a relationship. My wife, ex-wife now, is Mexican. We've been together. We worked together. I guess it was 2001. We split about 3 years ago, but it's still very good. Actually, we're going out for lunch after I finish up with you guys.
Excellent.
But it was a relationship. It was love that brought me to Cuernavaca, Mexico.
That'll do it. Yeah.
And the weather I always tell people, kind of as a joke, but kind of true, that it was a relationship and it was love that brought me here, but it was weather and food that keeps me here.
Yeah, yeah. What's the rock scene like down there? Because we have a friend, Sean Weingartner, who's been a guest on our show, and he frequently flies to Mexico City for some metal festivals and things of that nature that strike me as sort of events or one of a kind or one-off deals. But on a daily basis, is there much of a scene there?
Yeah, in terms of music, there are some of my really favorite bands. I'm almost 52 years old, and I remember what it was like growing up in Toronto, and there was a scene, and I hadn't the scene. I guess I don't know if it was that I got older or that things changed, but to me the scene changed maybe in the late 90s, something like that. And but back in Mexico, I feel that there's a scene. The awesome. I mean, really, really great bands in Mexico. My favorite is this one, Cardiel. I have a giant Cardiel tattoo on my leg. I've
Wow.
seen them live. I think I'm at 29 or 30 times I've seen them live.
Cool.
I love another band from Mexico City called the Rising Sun. They were my first concert back after the pandemic. I saw them live about a month ago in Mexico City. I've seen them also about 25 times live. The next night, I saw another great Mexico City band called Venom Sabathi. I also love Black Overdrive, which is a great. Cardiel is kind of a punk, fast, aggressive, not metal at all, but very aggressive, short songs, angry, really cool band, Cardiel. Rising Sun is a little bit more maybe psychedelic, rock sounding. Venom Sabathi is instrumental band, a little bit of a doom stoner band. Black Overdrive, great band, is I would say in the vein or the spirit of Down. They don't sound like Down, but they've just riffs, never-ending riffs. Black Overdrive has. I love the Bunions. That's Bunyans, not the bunions like what you get on your feet, but the bunions like Paul Bunyan. The Bunions is a fantastic band from Mexico City. Johnny Nasty Boots. A lot of really, and I go to a lot of these local shows. A lot of these bands I've seen many times. I love it.
Okay. Well, then sounds like there is a pretty thriving scene there. That's
We need to
awesome.
do our homework on these bands, or maybe you can send us some links and we can share them
Well,
in the description, because it sounds like, I mean, I trust your judgment, Dan. You have your YouTube channel. Tell us about your YouTube channel and why you have. I hope it's okay that I say this again. Superfan sounds nerdy, but welcome to the Nerd Fest.
Yeah.
yes.
We
So-
wear that as a badge of honor on this.
Yeah, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. So
Yeah.
So your YouTube channel, tell us what, I mean, I've been on there a few times. Dave's been on there a few times. Tell us what your YouTube channel and why.
It's hard to sum it up because I have over 1,000 videos. I think about 1,020, 1,030, something like that videos. I started the channel, believe it or not, there was a time when people didn't know what YouTube was. And that was when I started my channel. And I think at that time, I started the channel in March 2006, which at that time, it wasn't called the channel. It was just that you had a YouTube account. And I
Oh, yeah.
remember very well, people didn't know what YouTube was. I had, I would be talking to a friend or somebody and tell them about something I saw on YouTube, and they said, "What is YouTube?" And I had to explain what it was. And I started my channel kind of for two reasons. One, that was shortly before I moved to Mexico. That was in March 2006, and back then, hard drive space was at a premium. The laptop that I had at that time was only had a 30, to go into total nerd mode when we're talking about gigabytes, I had a 30 gigabyte laptop and there's no space to store anything on it. So I kind of used YouTube as a cloud before the term cloud was around. I would put videos on YouTube and then delete them from my life. They were just on YouTube. And kind of at the same time, I was planning on moving to Mexico. And this was also before social media. So it was a way for me to share videos with my family and friends back then. At the time, you could only share it through a YouTube link or Facebook and everything. So that was why I started my channel, and I started it very modestly. And I took a video in maybe 2007 of me eating tacos, and I was sending it to my young nephew back in Canada, who was about 4, 5, 6 years old at the time, saying, "Oh, here's your uncle eating tacos in Mexico." And it turned out that I guess a local or maybe a national news channel put my video on their channel, and I guess went viral before people said viral, and and then it started to people started to watch some other videos. But I think what I've kind of become or what people like about my channel is, and Jason maybe knows this, and maybe you too, Dave, is I do many things. Like I said, over 1,000 videos. But the merch videos, when I go to the concerts, if any of your listeners know or don't know, um, Mexico City has amazing bootleg merch. When you go to, and the bigger the concert, the more merch there is. If you go to a stadium show with 50 or 60,000 people, Metallica, or I've seen U2 a couple of times, and the Rolling Stones and the Foo Fighters and all these bands in big stadiums, and there are hundreds of people, and it's very organized. It's not just a guy with a backpack selling some cheap, crappy T-shirts. It's really legit, and there's everything, not just T-shirts, hats, posters, keychains, coffee mugs, uh, thermoses, things like that, pens, lighters, ashtrays, everything.
So
And
you do know that just to be clear, you do know that in America they would call the cops and
oh
they'd
yeah,
shut that down right away. So why isn't Metallica just? I'm not. I just picked Metallica, right?
right.
They're lawyers with cops, and the Metallica brigade come in and just set fire to all of that because, I mean, they're a brand. I mean, they're a protected brand, and
Of
so
course.
like you said, hundreds of different items and bootleggers just on an entire city block front of the stadium sounds like a no-no. And why aren't they being shut down? Do you have any insight?
I guess for one, you don't fuck with Mexico. I don't know, maybe that's too simple. Um,
I don't
and two,
fuck with Mexico. I don't. I do not fuck with Mexico.
I don't, and I've lived here for 15 years. I've
Well,
learned some lessons.
Texas used to be Mexico.
That's right.
Right. I respect
Um,
that. I respect it.
It is very origin. It's actually run by a union. You'll see some of the vendors. They actually have badges, lanyards, saying that they're part of a union. And also, it brings in a lot of money to the local economy. It's not shady. I think now for me, and maybe I'm overstepping my bounds, but I think anytime you wear a shirt or a hat or anything that has a band's logo on it, you're helping that band. You're promoting that band. You're saying, I love this band enough that I spend money on them. And to be honest, when a lot of these American or international bands come to Mexico, and when they sell their merch, it's tremendously expensive.
Yeah.
For example, if it's a big band like Iron Maiden, Metallica, something like that, their official T-shirts are, I would say, equal to, it's hard to compare money
Peso.
and,
Yeah.
because everything is, yeah, right, pesos and dollars.
Yeah.
But like, an average shirt might be $25 US, which for Americans is really cheap because I think they're
Yeah,
probably
that's like
40 or
half
50.
price. That's
Right, right.
half price.
That's
But
a
for
beer.
Mexicans, yeah, for Mexicans, that's, I could, and I'm not kidding, I could eat for typically, you can get a good meal in Mexico for $3. So, to spend, that much money on an official t-shirt, it's expensive. And so I think maybe, hopefully, the bands realize that. But it's funny that you mentioned that, Jason, because I just saw earlier this week that Guns N' Roses filed some kind of a lawsuit about bootleg merchandise in the States. Obviously, that doesn't apply to Mexico. And it's funny because when I saw Guns N' Roses, they played here twice. They played two stadium shows when they started their reunion tour a lifetime ago, which was 2016. And I went to both of those shows at a big stadium with about 55,000 people. And I was getting back to my YouTube channel, I take videos showing, all of these things. Because when I came here, the first concert I ever saw here was Pearl Jam in 2003, 18 years ago. And they did 3 nights at a big 20 or 22,000 capacity arena. And I'd never seen anything like this before. Coming from Toronto, you see a guy outside selling t-shirts out of the trunk of his car. And I just thought, holy shit, look at all this stuff. And it's good. Most of it is really, really good quality. These people selling all this stuff. And I, took some pictures. So then when the digital age came, when everybody started having digital cameras, I started kind of taking videos of it. And then they kind of caught on. A lot of when I do the big ones for Iron Maiden or Metallica, they end up going viral. But when I did the video for Guns N' Roses at their the bootleg merch tour outside the stadium in 2016, what's her name? I think Melissa Reese, the woman that plays keyboards for Guns N' Roses, and Del James. They're in my video out there looking at all the bootleg merch. And also Metallica in the, they did a concert video from Mexico City in 2000. The concerts were in 2009. They played 3 nights at this giant stadium, and in the DVD and I guess the bonus features, they talk about how, when they come to Mexico, they see all this merch and they love it. Pearl Jam in their documentary, they did a documentary commemorating their 20 years, which was now 10 years ago. And they talk about that. Stone Gossard is talking about he's drinking coffee in his house. And he said, I got this mug this bootleg mug from the Mexican merch stands. And I saw Soundgarden at an arena here in 2013. And I ran into a couple of the guys that work for Soundgarden. And they were talking on their cell phone with, I guess, some of the guys in the band saying, okay, we see in this stand, they were out there at the merch describing what they see. And they were describing everything for the band. So the bands, at least the big ones, they seem to accept this bootleg merch lifestyle.
So yeah, some of it's a numbers game. You start dealing with a band the size of Metallica, Guns N' Roses, or whatever, and then you factor in the cultural differences, the legal differences, the trademark, loopholes, etc. And at the end of the day, it's probably just not worth it for Metallica or Guns N' Roses to go after these guys, and and it's just time consuming and costs money to fight it and all that sort of thing. But I thought it was interesting. So I want to go back to you. So is this basically was this sort of the foundation of your YouTube channel as sort of a music outlet? You were going around to these gigs and kind of highlighting the merch booths and some of the various offerings. Is that what kind of launched the music end of the YouTube channel?
Musically, I guess, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
with, like I said, 1,000 videos, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm a big hiker too. I'm going hiking on a good 16-mile hike. I'm going to go on Wednesday. So, it's basically my channel is my life in Mexico, but a big part of that is music and, showing these, not just, everybody take, and also I thought, everybody goes to concerts and they take videos on their phones now, digital
Yeah.
cameras before of the bands playing. And I do that too, but I thought I want to do something different and show what happens in Mexico outside the concert. And it's, I mean, for me, maybe I have a different attitude because I'm not from here. I love it, man. Even if I don't buy anything, which I mean, some concerts I go to, I'll buy 3 or 4 shirts, but I love it. It's a real. It reminds me of as we talked about in the beginning, like a sense of community. I love going to I'm always like the first one there at the concert. I love getting there. It really gets you into the spirit of the concert. In the years that I've lived in Mexico, I've been back to Canada a few times and I've seen a few concerts, and they suck because I mean, you go. I saw Testament and Exodus there a few years ago in Toronto. I mean, the concert itself was good, but you get up, you get there just as the doors are opening, and you go in and you see the concert and you go home, and that's fine. The concert is fine, but in Mexico, man, I wake up, the day of the concert, especially if it's a big one. I actually feel excited, like I did when I was a kid, and I'll take the day off work, I'll clear my schedule, and I love getting there, going and seeing all the merchandise, running into friends, talking about, oh, are you going to this show coming up? And oh, I saw you at this show like this. It's for me, it's a little bit of nostalgia too. In addition to, buying, I luckily I live in a country where I can wear T-shirts 365 days a year.
Yeah.
You have a very limited window to wear T-shirts in Canada. But no, I love the whole spirit of it. It's not just the T-shirts. It's a real, for me, a real community feeling.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, your YouTube channel has a bunch of different things. There's hiking videos and everything. One of the things that jumped out at me was you do a segment called "I Love This Album," and you kind of pick an album and highlight it and talk about it. And then you've also done the first thing that put you on my radar was when you reviewed all of the Broken Teeth records. And I thought that was awesome because Jason, I think, sent me the link and said, check this guy out. He reviewed all the Broken Teeth records. And I was like, oh my God, this guy. So I watched it, of course, because I'm a big Broken Teeth fan myself. And I couldn't believe
I'm going to step out for a second while you guys talk about this.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I couldn't believe the granular levels that you went to with each CD. Like you knew all the songs, you could recite the lyrics on cue. You were pulling tidbits out of the liner notes. Like this was very thorough and in depth. So I number one, I just want to applaud your tenacity and your attention to detail. But number two, I wanted to ask you, which segment like that has gotten the most feedback from your viewers or listeners? Or which one has caused the most back and forth? Have you gotten any arguments with anybody based on your reviews, or have you gotten an overwhelming amount of feedback on one particular segment versus others? Talk to us about some of that.
That's a good question. I really try to avoid online arguments and bullshit. I appreciate comments and everything like that, but I try to avoid arguments. Luckily, I guess I reached 10,000 subscribers a few months ago. I'm over 10,000 now.
Wow.
But a lot of my videos only get a few hundred views, maybe even a few dozen views. But the comments I get are overwhelmingly positive. Now, maybe that's because I'm only getting, a couple of hundred views. If, the bigger something gets, the more people hate it. There's always a backlash. If you went by just the comments, you think Metallica is the most hated band in the world instead of, the biggest and most successful and in many circles, the most regarded. No, the comments are actually very good. I started that one that I love this album. I always have to do this series. Just that was a little bit COVID inspired. Just because last year when this pandemic started, it was boring. Mexico never had an official shutdown, but there was nothing to do. They never said you can't leave your house, but there was nothing to do. Basically, in March, April, May, June last year, the only place you could go was a supermarket. That was like a big deal to go to a supermarket. So I love to be busy. I feel like I'm a shark. I feel like I have to keep moving. Not that I'm going to die if I stop, but I like to be, I like having a full plate, and it doesn't take much to get me entertained. And there was nothing to do, so I did, it was on May 4th. You guys maybe remember that. No, not May 4th. The 8th of May, the Ace of Spades. The 8th of May was Motorhead Day,
Yeah.
and I love Motorhead. I think Jason knows I have a huge Motorhead tattoo. I don't know if you can see here
Nice.
on my leg, a big Motorhead tattoo, and I don't need much motivation to talk about Motorhead, but I thought I'm going to talk about Motorhead's whole catalog. And so they were the first one. And I thought, you know what? I can also do this about Kiss, and I can do this about. I did about Faith No More and Anthrax and Broken Teeth, and then so I did all the bands that I really, really could dig into. And then I was kind of bored, and I thought, maybe I can. There are a lot of individual albums that I love that I'm maybe not big enough into the band that I could do the whole catalog, but I can do some albums. I did the first Dangerous Toys album, although I could have easily done the full catalog, but I am missing some of the CDs. I think they're back in Canada. So I started doing I love this album, and I like doing it. I mean, I'm a little bit of a talker, and I get bored sometimes. So whenever I get a chance, I just stand. This is my studio behind me,
I thought
and
I recognized. Yeah.
I guess like you guys too. We're all huge music fans. I got into. I think Jason maybe knows about this. I got Kiss Alive when I just turned 6 years old. I got it for Christmas in 1975. I got Kiss Alive, and that I guess set me on the path towards the music that I still love today. I love. I'm a metal fan, a rock fan, and I just. It's different now, when I was a teenager, and you had all your friends, and you chose your friends back then based on music. The jocks in school hang out together, and the preppies, we called them. I don't know if you called them that in the States, but in Canada we called them the preppies. And I was a rocker or a stoner or a metalhead, whatever you called it. And all of my friends, we were all based on music. But as you get older, things change, and I still, man, I love music. In some ways, I like it more than ever. And I don't always have people to talk about with music. So I thought, well, I'll talk about it myself. So that was why I started doing I love this album. Just for me to talk about music.
Do you think that we have a segment that we do sometimes called, Shot of Rock and Roll or what got you hooked, and you just kind of like you just said when you were 6 years old, it was 1975, and Kiss Alive was brand new, and you said you got that when you were 6, and it kind of set you on fire, and then it got you hooked and got you started. Was it an older brother or a family member, or you just said, "Look, Mom, I got to have this"?
No, my aunt Kathy, who is still alive, and I should be thankful to her. She bought it for me. She bought Kiss Alive for me. I have no idea why. I have no
Kiss
clue.
Alive, Kathy Alive. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guess I'm just pointing out that she's alive because that was a long time ago.
Well, I'm really, really glad that she's still alive, by the way. So
I am too, and I'm very thankful that she got me into that. But no, it was, and I have no idea why she bought that for me. I had never heard of Kiss before that. I think it was the first album I ever got. My parents were into, like I guess 50s, not 60s, 50s music. They were both Elvis fans, especially my mother, I think. But my dad liked 50s rock and roll, and he used to. I guess this was maybe later in the 70s, maybe into the 80s. He bought a nice big stereo. When you guys remember when having a stereo was like a source of pride, right? You would spend a lot of money on a stereo. And my dad used to sit on Sunday afternoons and with his headphones on and tape things from the radio when they had these oldies shows. And he used to, he was very meticulous about writing things, on his cassettes, on his nice stereo system. But that was after I was already into music. So Kiss Alive was the first for me. And then I, went, Destroyer. I assume I got them all in the order they came out. And then I guess after Kiss was the first one that I remember getting. I had a Bee Gees greatest hits album, maybe in the late 70s or something like that. But I guess in terms of rock or metal, I got Paranoid. Must have been around 1980. I think that was, as far as I can remember, Paranoid was my first non-Kiss metal or rock album.
And you couldn't have, you couldn't have done much better.
Yeah.
Going from like
Good start.
destroyer and like maybe rock and roll over and love gun kiss electric. Oh, paranoid. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that
Good.
point, Paranoid was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But, it was new for me.
Yeah.
And then I guess I got Van Halen, Fair Warning, I guess around 81. I got Diary Madman around the same time. Oh, Back in Black was maybe Back in Black could have been either that. I mean, I don't remember the exact timeline, but either Back in Black or Paranoid were my first non-Kiss. And, if my Aunt Kathy had not bought me Kiss Alive, if she had bought me Steely Dan album or James Taylor album, maybe I wouldn't have, been attracted to Black Sabbath or Van Halen or AC/DC. But that was, and then later, I got into the Number of the Beast in 1982, and I got Kill 'Em All. I bought Kill 'Em All in December 1983, and this is still like you guys. This is still, and like everybody, I think metalheads are very loyal, and this was the music that I loved when I was 6 years old, and when I was 10 years old, and now when I'm almost 52 years old.
So when you were 6 years old and you got Kiss Alive, I don't have to ask you, but I'm going to. I mean, was it just everything? Was it the guys on the cover, the monster makeup, the kabuki comic book hero vibe playing rock and roll? Was it the loud music? Was it what was it that in your young mind that made you like drink the punch?
It was, if you give me just 5 seconds, I'll tell you what it was.
Yeah, tell me. He's off to the races, folks. He's going to grab props. He's bringing in his props. Here he comes.
Here it is.
That's the copy.
This is the one. Now, if you see, it's beat to shit.
Yeah, I see
Because I've
that.
had this since 1976.
Yeah.
But this is the oldest thing that I own.
Got to talk in the mic, buddy.
Sorry, this is the oldest thing that I have in my life. I've had this in my life since as I said, since Christmas 1975. It followed me to Mexico. I haven't listened to the actual record of it for many, many years. But I mean, going back to your question, Jason,
Yeah,
what do you think attracted me?
of
Yeah.
course. Well,
It's
that's
the-
why I kind of answered it for you. I was trying not to, but it's
Yeah.
hard. You see the smoke bombs and the blood and the fire and the whole 9 yards, and you're like, what the hell is going on? I got to have this. Mom,
Yeah, and maybe
money.
I would have liked Ted Nugent just as much, or Uriah Heep, or if I'd got something like that. I mean, I did love the music. I remember, man, just like everybody, like you guys, listening to this album just constantly. Now, I guess the image was, I guess everybody would say this, and I'm sure it's true. The image was secondary, but man, everything about it, the music, the lyrics. I remember "Hotter Than Hell," thinking like, oh, maybe I don't think my mother's gonna like that. I'm listening to a song with "hell" in the title.
I gotta have.
That was the least of her worries.
Yeah, imagine now. But no, Kiss led me on the path towards. I can't say it changed my life, but it definitely, clearly influenced and still influences the music that I listen to today, and that I'm a huge fan of today. And maybe did shape me as a person.
There's a lot of people that we asked, what got you hooked? What was it that set you on your rock and roll path? And 9 out of 10, I have to say, usually pick Kiss Alive as their gateway
Right.
album.
Kiss,
Yeah,
Kiss is the overwhelming champion in that respect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a cliche, but I mean, it's true. I know Sebastian Bach. I think he was a Kiss Alive guy. I think maybe Scott Ian and Charlie Benante. I think you, Jason.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I was
No,
I was already into a bunch of other things that were heavy, and like I was into Elton John and Alice Cooper and Queen. I had a bunch of Queen records, and then the neighborhood kids turned me on to Kiss Alive, and I kept my Queen and my Elton, but they set me on a whole new way as soon as
Had to make room on the bookcase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So Dan, let me ask you this. I know that the purpose of your YouTube channel, especially as it relates to music, is you're obviously a fan, and you obviously do this to sort of share your passion for the bands with an audience. And I'm guessing that you probably would prefer not to waste your time on stuff that you aren't drawn to or are attracted to. But have you ever considered doing segments on albums that you don't like, where you're actually like critiquing them?
That's a good question. A good friend of mine, this guy called Kevin Montavon, maybe a couple of months ago, I sent him. I listen to I listen to music every single day. I exercise every day. I walk about 5 kilometers, which is 3.5 miles. I did that this morning, and every single day I go out with my music and I listen to a full album from front to back. And then during the course of a day, I'll listen to other songs here and there. But a couple of months ago, I was going through the whole Scorpions discography because I only got into Scorpions in Blackout in 1982, and it was sometime later that I discovered that they had so much music before that, which turns out is even better than what came after 1982.
Now you're talking my language.
I know you're a huge
The
Scorpions
the
guy.
70s Scorpions records they're fucking scary.
Oh,
Like
Taken by Force.
what's
Oh my
going
God.
on musically is complete. It's a different band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Singing different. Everything. The guitar playing is different. The riffs are different.
I only a couple of years ago discovered Taken by Force, and he's a woman, she's a man, and
Yeah.
Your Light. Oh my God, what a riff that is.
Sales
And,
of Carry On. Mm-hmm.
Steam Rock Fever, Sales of Quran, everything. That album is incredible. But I got up to Savage Amusement. Now I was still a big Scorpions fan in 1988, and I saw them twice on that tour. I saw them in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens in September '88, and I'd seen them a few months earlier on the Monsters of Rock tour in Buffalo, New York. Everybody knows that with Metallica and Van Halen. And I guess I liked it well enough at the time, Savage Amusement, but I listened to it a couple of months ago, and I sent my friend Kevin Montavon a message saying something like, I'm going to start a new series called I Hate This Album, or This Album Sucks, and I was going to start with Scorpion Savage Amusement. You're right, Dave. I try to, Jenna, I would rather talk about things that I like than what I don't like, but Savage Amusement sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's easier. You're using less energy to talk about things that you love than to talk about things that you hate.
Right.
That's why it's always good advice to just kind of keep a positive thing going on, but have a balance of something. I think that it would be great. I think that you'd be really good at. I think it's a really good idea actually for someone like you, who's educated and has passion, to actually take a record that you maybe were excited about because you were a fan of the band, and then you get the record and you talk about how let down you are by way of, okay, I've listened to this front to back many times, and I'm here to say that this is terrible. And here's the reasons that I think it's terrible. And like, this riff is cool, but what the hell is that? And da-da-da. You could probably do a good yin and yang on a record that you didn't like.
Yeah, I did some a little bit before I started this I Love This Album series. As I mentioned, I went through some bands, their whole discographies. And when I did, Kiss has some shitty albums. As much as I love Kiss, they have some pretty shitty albums.
It's easy to say, yeah.
Yeah, and Motorhead too. I think March or Die sucks. And I did mention that when I went through Motorhead's entire discography. I said, I don't think March or Die is a very good Motorhead album at all. I think it sucks. But for me, it's just easier to be excited about something and to talk about something that I really love instead of something that I don't like. But yeah, of course, there have been many albums over the years that were disappointing, or that you could say just flat out sucked.
Yeah.
What about the Black Album? What do you guys think about the Black Album? Because now it was 30 years ago this week that it came out. In the time that we're talking about this,
I like it. I like it that we have a guest on, and the guest starts interviewing the host.
I know.
Yeah. But this is cool because you have a YouTube channel, and you have this in you. Like, you could totally do this this podcast thing. And actually, Dan, I think that you should look into it. Now, Dave, you go first. Black Album via Dan's question.
I probably had the same opinion as a lot of people. So, and that is that when it came out, as a Metallica fan, based on those first three records, I felt a little let down. It was, to me, and it wasn't just the music, it was also right about that time that, well, they did the video for one on the Justice for All record, but up until that point, they were fiercely independent and they just didn't cater to any of the trends or what was expected of a band because they were strong enough and big enough to do things on their own terms. They were signed to a major label, of course, for the distribution and the tour support and that sort of thing, but they never did the videos. They rarely got airplay except by the metal DJ at midnight, and they just weren't going to change their formula to get those things. And that was as much of the reason for me to admire them as the music. So fast forward to the Black Album, and I see the armor starting to crack. I see them catering to radio. I see them catering to MTV. I hear the music changing. And then, but from an artist perspective, and some of this comes with age, the older I get and the more experience I have and the more I know musicians like Jason and others, I come to appreciate that as an artist, you don't want to stagnate. So I try to factor all those things in. So long answer made short. It's one of those albums that I've come back to in recent years and learned to really appreciate it for what it is. Back in the day, I didn't like it because now the cheerleaders liked it and the varsity quarterback liked it. And that was my band. And you guys aren't allowed to have my band. And now the band is opening the doors and letting everybody in. But as an album, production wise, songwriting wise, how solid it is from start to finish. I mean, I think there might be one throwaway track on the whole record. I've grown to appreciate it. That's my answer.
Jason?
Well, I think that you kind of said it all, Dave. It might be popular information that I'm not the biggest Motley Crue fan. I think that, that Mick and Nikki and Tommy can write some fucking songs. I think those guys can pretty much do anything they set out to do because they did. I don't really have much of an opinion about Vince. The same thing happened to Motley Crue, which is why I bring that up. The exact same thing. I feel like that first record, Too Fast for Love, when it was an underground record, and at the time, no one in Texas had heard anything like that before, other than maybe, they were a souped-up New York Dolls. They were a heavy metal version of the Dolls, or the Sweet, or some kind of 70s over-the-top proto metal, bubblegum pop with a bunch of Satan thrown in, or something. And I felt like, holy crap. And I started playing it for all my friends. And then Shout at the Devil came out, and it was a little bit of the same, a little more polished. They had it together. But then something happened, and the whole world fell in love with this band, Motley Crue. I hit the exit.
Yeah.
I was out of there. So I could, I don't want to just go give the same exact answer as Dave, but it's kind of going to develop into that a little bit when I, enter Metallica, no pun intended. The stories I could tell, I've told already. I met the band on their first tour. I followed them, this close. My nose is probably brown, that I absolutely fell in love with what was going on. But, Slayer, same thing. It was, and what Dave was saying is exactly right, because I feel like, for the most part, Metallica and Slayer were creating their own audiences. We don't need anybody else. We're in the underground. Oh, we're selling millions of we're still in the underground.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it on our terms.
Yeah.
You could say the same thing about like what Tool did, what Clutch did, and bands like that. They have their own. Primus, Same thing. They have their own thing going on. Voivod, bands like that, whether they be progressive or thrash or whatever it is, they're not answering to anyone. Well, when bands like Slayer and Metallica get like these awesome managers who are managing pop bands and their producer produces pop bands, just to get on with my answer, things are going to change.
Yeah.
You're already got the clout. You're already these big bad motherfuckers, but I'm talking about Slayer and Metallica, and throw in some other bands too. So by the time Injustice for All comes out and they do the one video, it's like floodgates are open. Everyone's going to love this, and they're going to be like, oh my God, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And then you'll change your mind later because you didn't know that guitars and drums could play fast like that. Because you're sheltered and all you do is listen to the radio or watch MTV. See, that's a whole other demographic. If you're into underground metal, fuck the radio. You don't think about the radio because they don't play Metallica and Slayer.
Right.
Or Merciful Fate. Or Anthrax. Or Destruction and Celtic Frost. Or what? You see my point? So,
yeah.
You know, someone who's from the underground, who is either in a thrash band or a musician who does that kind of a thing, and sure likes AC/DC and Elton John and Queen and Kiss and Riot and whatever, rock and roll, right? I feel like by the time the Black Album comes out, music is about to change so drastically. Talk about being ahead of the game, Metallica, ahead of the fucking game. So when rock and metal were about to take a nosedive, Metallica just stayed right where they were. They had radio, they had MTV, they had everything they needed to just stay right where they were. And then guess what happened during the whole Seattle boom? Metallica stayed right they were. Oh no, they didn't. Oh shit. Oh, they got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Right along Pearl Jam, right along Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Right along, you know. And then I think the Guns N' Roses thing is a phenomenon because of Appetite, you know. But by 91, when the Black Album came out, Appetite was kind of, it's like, all right, well, we got Use Your Illusion coming out, and everyone was like, yeah, that's cool, a new Guns N' Roses record. Yeah, where's that Appetite? Give me that Appetite again. Yeah. So Appetite is still this go-to record for fucking everybody. Over Use Your Illusion. I'm sorry. It's true. You know it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy. So you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, even though the Black Album is not the go-to record for hardcore Metallica fans, it was their stepping stone into the new way of when you're talking brand, business, and they had the production, they had the songwriting, they had, James had taken vocal lessons. The first time I heard the Black Album, I was on tour with Metal Church, Motorhead, Judas Priest, and Alice Cooper.
Operation Rock and Roll.
Correct. Played in Montreal, actually.
Toronto too. I didn't go to that show.
Played the Forum.
Played the C&E Grandstand.
Yes,
in
and
Toronto,
played
the C&E Grandstand outdoor.
Yes, that's correct, and played that the Forum. Okay, so we played a place called Le Brick as well.
I remember it.
Okay, so we, I'm on the bus. It's middle of the day. Knock, 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 knock on the bus door. I'm like, what the hell? And it's John Marshall, who used to guitar tech for Kirk Hammett,
right,
who knows that I've known the Metallica guys since their first tour. He goes, I got a cassette. He pulls a cassette out of his pocket. You're going to want to hear this. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, okay, sure, come on. And it was John Marshall, right? He was playing guitar in Metal Church. We go to the back lounge of the bus. He pops it in the deck. And he goes, you're going to shit. Press this play. And it was an advance burn that he got from Kirk of the Black Album. And, he's fast forwarding through. I mean, we weren't going to sit there for an hour and listen to the whole record. And I was like, my jaw is on the floor. I don't think I said 3 words. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm sure that you're not allowed to burn a copy. He's like, probably not. I go, wow, this is gonna blow minds. So, I think I heard a little bit of Nothing Else Matters. And he's like, check this out. And James Hetfield falsetto. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. James Hetfield using different places in his voice, singing, had a little bit more control over his vibrato. The riffs were huge. Once again, not my go-to Metallica record. Now it's just kind of turned into what Dave started out as. I think that overall, I think that it was bound to happen because Metallica is one of those bands that is going to continue to brand and be there. It's a legend. It's a living legend now, right? Kind of changed the world. Yeah. In the same way, I feel like when people get hooked on Motorhead and they learn Lemmy. Lemmy's was like a living legend, a living cartoon, a caricature. He was all
living legend on 2 feet. You said it in Never Dead. Living legend on 2 feet.
Yeah, he's
got a mind like a bear trap.
He changed the world, and I think that there's a lot to say about the Black Album. But then, there's these hardcores that talk shit about the band, and they totally dog out, Hetfield, and the people just need to grow up and realize that Metallica had to grow up too, and they had to grow up fast because of all the shit that they had been through.
Yeah. It's one of those albums. I never bought it when it came out, and there's a lot of records like that I don't have in my collection.
Yeah, I don't remember buying it either. I mean, I have it, but I don't remember buying it. It wasn't like a religious. It's like, get up, take a shower. I'm going to buy the Black Album.
Right. There's a lot of albums. There's a lot of albums by a lot of bands that I don't feel like I need to own because I can hear them on the radio 24/7. And so I don't need to add it to my collection because I'm hearing it so much. I'm burning out on it. But many, many years later, I'll say as recently as within the last 5 years, I found the Black Album on cassette at Half Price Books for $6.99 or something. And I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I probably should have this in my collection because now that I'm not hearing it on the radio all day, every day, and it is a good album. It does have good songs. I just got burned out on it. So I'm going to go ahead and buy this and add it to my collection because it's a good album.
That's one of the things I talk about a lot when I talk about these albums when I do these. I love this album. Is that there's a big difference, I think, between just getting tired of something and saying something sucks. I remember very, very well hearing Enter Sandman for the first time. I was in a department store. It was in I guess back then the videos used to come out, they had a lead time, right? Maybe the video for Enter Sandman came out in July, a month ahead of the album. Yeah. I remember being in a department store where they used to have, all the televisions on the walls. And they had, in Canada, we had Much Music, which was like MTV. Yep. And they were debuting. It was I guess not the world premiere, but at least the Canadian premiere of Enter Sandman. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I hadn't heard the song before. So seeing the video was the first time I was also hearing it. I fucking loved it. To me, it was, and I had been a Metallica fan, as I mentioned, from the beginning. I bought Kill 'Em All in December 1983. And I loved Enter Sandman. I'm at the point now where I can't remember the last time I chose to listen to Enter Sandman. Or actually, put it on, whether the CD or digital, whatever. It's not a song that I would choose to hear, but I mean, hopefully I still have I can still remember to say, it's not a bad song. It's a fucking awesome song. I'm just really tired of it. And you could say the same thing about Rock and Roll All Night and Crazy Train and
Can we talk about those? You just hit a nerve when you mentioned the last three songs you just mentioned, what Crazy Train, Rock and Roll All Night, and Enter Sandman. Let's talk about this as a group. Okay? This is one of the reasons, Dan, that you're on the show. You have a very, very good insight just off the top of your head on how to put things together to make you think about it. So I want to just slow you down for a second and go, think about just those three songs for a second. It's very interesting that those songs are written perfectly. You can't change anything about those songs. And here's the deal. All three are rock and roll songs. Up, down, sideways, under the hood, standing on the roof, in the basement, in the attic, They're all three rock and roll songs. Let's don't mince words. I don't care what anyone says. No, dude, metal, whatever. They're rock and roll songs. And when you think about the way that they're written, they're very formula. There's an intro. There's a think about Inner Sandman. Think about Rock and Roll All Night. Think about Crazy Train. So Crazy Train and Inner Sandman have guitar intros, and Rock and Roll All Night has a drum intro. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's just the intro. Then you've got the band. You've got some of them do a build-up, bom, right? You know what I mean? And then you got a little build-up. Sandman builds up. Rock and Roll All Night, just kind of the whole band comes in. Eventually, you got intro, build-up, or band comes right in. Then you got a verse. You got a pre-chorus. You got a chorus. They do the same piece of music again. Then there's a breakdown or a solo. Then there's an outro. And that's it. It's formula rock and roll music. Now, I mean, Ozzy comes from Black Sabbath. There's no formula the way that Sabbath wrote songs. Metallica comes from, let's just try these parts and build these parts and build these. I mean, some Metallica songs are 7.5 minutes long. You see what I'm trying to say? It's like they're writing songs the same way Merciful Fate writes a song. You know, it's like 10 riffs going on in a 6-minute tune. So maybe not Kiss. Kiss tried to write formula songs like the Beatles. You know, kind of pop versions, heavy metal versions of what the Beatles were doing, but it's very interesting how these kind of metal background bands, Metallica and Ozzy, finally come to the realization to write a song that fits that sort of natural pop, sort of like a song map, right?
Yeah.
I find it very interesting. And you think about when those records came out. So you got
75,
75, yep, and you've got 81,
80.
81.
Wizard of Oz was 80.
80.
Yep.
Enter Sandman 91.
It's pretty close. You're looking at, you know, all not quite a decade and then another decade, but it doesn't matter. It's like Cheap Trick writes the same song map. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes when you grow up and you learn how to write a song that's going to put you where you need to be because you're supposed to be there, that's my vote for the Black Album. You know, they still have those crazy long weird songs where, you know, the songs come from a metal background where, you know, it's kind of zigzag and not exactly like a formula, right?
Well, I think Metallica, maybe more than anybody, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I actually mean it in a very positive way. I think especially Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice, and then you could even say going well forward to Death Magnetic, they had a very, very clear, the albums had a very, very clear format. Every album, of those three, Ride the Lightning, Puppets, and Justice, what was the first song? Very fast, thrashy, you know, heavy song. And then the last one, except Ride the Lightning, was a little bit different. The last song was Damage Incorporated on Puppets and Dyer's Eve on Justice.
Mm-hmm.
They did a little bit different, but each album of those three had not a ballad, but one that was a little bit quiet. Fade to Black, Welcome Home, Sanitarium, and One. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And each one had a long title track, which was, I think on all three was the second track. Ride the Lightning, longer second track, title track. Master of Puppets, long second track. Justice for All, long second track. Very, very formulaic, but nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously it was great because those are, for me, and I think maybe you guys too, those are three, name a better, succession of 3 consecutive albums by any band. I don't know. For me, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Well,
3 in a row.
You've confirmed that like running order on a record is very important, and it's probably something that you've noticed in your videos on your YouTube channel. So you know, let's talk about a little bit, and I think that this might be a good way to kind of take us out to the end of our episode. First, and I'm going to say it again. Thanks again for joining us today. It's been an awesome conversation. We've all gotten to go around the room between the three of us and sort of talk about things that are more coming from your brain and your ideals. You know, you wrote letters to me in the 90s.
I wanted to ask. I wanted listeners to know how it is that we got Dan to be on this show, because I'll confess I didn't know who Dan was until a few months ago when I got the link where he was reviewing all the Broken Teeth records. But there's a connection between you and Jason that I'm familiar with now. But I want our listeners to hear how you came into Jason's orbit and how you landed on the show today. So take us back.
Excellent question. It was around the time of The Artist, formerly known as Dangerous Toys. I should say I was a massive, I hope I don't come across as fanboy here, but
You're in the right place, because that's what we are.
all right, well, here we go. As I've mentioned, this was the kind of music that I like. And so in the mid to late 80s, I loved Guns N' Roses. I loved Faster Pussycat. I was one of the maybe kind of rare people that loved thrash and, whatever you want to call it, glam rock.
You're in the right place, because
Yeah, I like
if
them
it's
both
good,
equally.
yeah.
Right. I had some friends that only liked thrash and some friends that hated thrash. They only liked Aerosmith and Van Halen and Motley Crue. But I like both, I would say, pretty equally. And so when I loved Bullet Boys, but so when the first Dangerous Toys record came out, I bought that, loved it. I remember very well the first time I heard it was I saw the video for similar with Enter Sandman. The first time I heard it was via the video, which was for Teasin' Pleasin'. Loved it. I thought, holy shit, this
on Much Music.
it must have been on Much Music, yeah. And I used to tape them all too. I think like a lot of us, we used to tape, things on the radio. And I have back in my mother's house in Canada, I have tons of VHS videos with old metal videos and WWF wrestling and things like that. And so I loved Teasin' Pleasin', bought the record right away, loved it. Probably I've talked about this before. Probably my favorite album of that era or that genre. Probably better than Appetite for Destruction. I love the first
Wow.
Dangerous Toys album. And then Hellacious Acres.
Checks in the mail, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I could use that living in Mexico. And then Hellacious Acres came out. Loved it. And then, unfortunately, a lot of people, not just with Dangerous Toys, but, music changed around then. Hellacious Acres came out in 91. And so did Nevermind, and so did 10, and so did Bad Motorfinger, and everybody knows everything was changing.
The Black Album.
Right? Yeah, 91 was a real changing year, but I still loved it. And then Pissed came out in 94, which I loved.
My favorite.
And then The Artist Formerly Known as Dangerous Toys came out in 95, 96, 95, I think, and I loved it too. And I think at that point I was feeling a little bit like a survivor or like a leftover. I thought, because some of my friends that used to love that music, like a lot of people, they didn't really buy the records anymore or listen to it. And I guess The Artist Formerly Known as Dangerous Toys had an address on it, a mailing address, and I wrote, and I think still it's the only letter that I've ever written. When I was a kid, I never wrote to Kiss. I never wrote to Dee Snider or Angus Young or anybody. When I
wrote to Twisted Sister, and I was totally bummed because I got a form letter back.
That's better than nothing.
It is better than nothing, but I mean, it's like a Xerox piece of paper. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's nothing on a piece of paper.
Yeah, but it's obviously very different than now. That and just to sidetrack a little, I think it's kind of unfortunate that so many people view the internet as a place to just talk shit. You see a band will, on their Facebook or Instagram, whatever, they'll post that they have a new album out or whatever, and people just say your band has sucked for the last 20 years or something. I think it's just a waste. Because it used to be difficult to talk to bands. The only way you could talk to bands back then was either meet them when they came to your town, or this one time that I did it, write to them. And it's so easy now, and people maybe don't. People abuse that, I think. But so I wrote a letter to Jason in '95 or '96, telling him, what I'm saying now, saying, man, I love your band. I've been a fan of your band for a long time. And at this point, I was 25 or 26 years old, maybe older than the average person who's writing fan letters. But fuck it. And and then I guess I don't know how this was, when mail was mail. And so I got a letter back. I don't know if it was weeks later, a month later, months, but I got a letter, and I still have it, a handwritten letter from Jason. I guess thanking me for support and told me about some other things he was doing. I think he told me about, uh, I guess at that time about Sick. I guess were you doing Sick at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Kiss tribute and some
Yeah.
other things. And then we started, I guess, a little bit like pen pals. We started mailing things back and forth. I remember I had a CD single of, it was the Foo Fighters' Big Me, and they did a cover of Ozone from Ace Frehley's
Oh, yeah.
1978 Kiss album. And you hadn't heard it. This was when it was hard to hear things. You couldn't just go
Yeah.
on Spotify or YouTube. And I sent it to you, and I guess you taped it and sent it back to me. And so I guess for some years we would, write occasionally back and forth. And then when the internet age came, I found you on Facebook and sent you a friend request. And I guess you had remembered me. And then since then, maybe that was 2008, 2009. And then I got married. When I got married here in Mexico in 2011, my wife and I did, these I don't know if Dave has ever seen this, but these kind of trashier dress things that were kind of popular at the time, where the husband and the wife, I think especially the wife, goes out in your wedding clothes, and you take photos in like non-traditional wedding photos. And we did one. We went to like a garbage dumpster and took some pictures, and to some places. And so and somebody did a video of it, and we did. I chose "Hell for Sale" by Broken Teeth as the soundtrack to my post wedding video. And we've sent each other things back and forth over the years. Jason knows I go to this place called El Chopo in Mexico City, which is it's been going on for 40 years, a big street market in Mexico City. Hundreds of people selling T-shirts and merch and everything. I sent Jason a cool Dangerous Toys patch some years ago. I think some pins over the years, a few T-shirts, and he sent me some. I think last year you sent me the Blood on the Radio Broken Teeth CD. So that's my history with Jason McMaster.
Wow. That is really cool. And full
25
circle.
years now, 26 years.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wow, that is crazy.
The-
Full circle then.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, cool.
I think that obviously things have changed a lot since those days, and everyone. I mean, we're doing this. I mean, 10 years ago or so, I was talking to Danko Jones from Toronto.
Yep.
We've had him on the show. The episode hadn't aired yet, but we're excited about that. I'm talking to Danko, and he mentions that he has a podcast, and I'm going, back in my mind, I'm going, what's a podcast? So,
Yeah.
you learn a lot during a pandemic, So this is, I had to learn how to use Zoom for obviously a million things, but because now I use it all the time. But things have changed. Sitting down and writing a letter on the back of an old flyer used to be the normal. I would write 10 letters a day to people.
I have some old flyers. You've sent me some a few for sure. I have a Dangerous Toys flyer. There was a Tommy Pond's drawing that you wrote me on the. Cool. I mean, instead of just getting a letter on a piece of paper, it was on the back of a Dangerous Toys flyer, and I still have all this stuff. And I'll give you a little side note about Danko Jones. He and I attended a lot of the same shows together in Toronto. We don't know each other, but it's kind of funny too. In this internet age, we've interacted a few times. To be honest, I'm not a fan of his music. I don't dislike him. Maybe I just need to look deeper. But we follow a few of the same Toronto pages on social media. There's one, I think it's called the Flyer Vault, where they show old, Toronto flyers. And I've commented, and he's commented to me and saying, so Danko and I, we don't know each other. He would never know my name if you. But he and I guess this is the good thing about the internet that we've. It turns out we saw Angel together in Toronto in 1987 or
Yeah,
1988.
he's a big Death Angel guy.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan, I want people to know how to find you because your videos are really worth watching, especially if you're a fan of the
Thanks.
Talk Louder podcast. You're a fellow nerd like all us here, because I kind of found myself going down a rabbit hole, and I mean that in the best way possible. So if someone's looking for your channel, your name is not necessarily very unique. So how are they going to find Dan? Because I had to sort of flip through a number of Dan Delaney's. Is there any other keywords they can use to
Yeah,
narrow it down to you?
Danbowski, which I see it's on the screen now. I don't know if it'll show up, but yeah, Danbowski, which has been an online name of mine for I think since 1999. I think if you search YouTube just for Danbowski, Danbowski, like the Big Lebowski, the movie, the Big
Okay.
Danbowski. I think that's because YouTube changed their way they operate years ago. But yeah, I think if you search for Danbowski, you should find my channel right away.
Yeah, I want people to be able to find you because it's good content, and there's obviously a million Delaney's if you just do a search Dan Delaney. So Dan Bowski,
Yep.
and I noticed your profile picture is something about don't do drugs, eat tacos, or
I
something like that.
let me tell you a quick funny story about that. Yeah, it's a stop sign, and it says "Say no to drugs, say yes to tacos."
That's it.
And I found that picture. Oh, this cat. I found that picture. I don't know, probably shortly after I started that channel. It's been my only profile picture. I don't have the vanity to put my face on. And really funny, I flew to Tijuana, Mexico. It was around this time in 2019, in August 2019, to go see. I have a friend who lives in Tijuana, and I flew there. If you guys know this band, Cadaver, who I also have a giant cadaver tattoo on my other leg. And they were playing in San Diego at this venue, maybe you guys know it, called Brick by Brick.
Mm-hmm.
And they were playing there with a band called Truck Fighters. So I flew to Tijuana to go with my friend across the border to San Diego to see this concert. And so the one day I was there, my friend Mexican who lives in Tijuana, he had to work. So he left me to wander the streets of Tijuana by myself, which is not as nearly as dangerous or as bad or as ugly as it sounds. It was actually pretty cool. And I was looking for some place to eat, and I stopped at this a little, I guess, like a restaurant, and I went in, and you know what was on the wall? Stop sign, the actual stop sign saying "Say no to drugs, say yes to tacos." I couldn't believe it. It was like and I don't know if maybe there's more than one sign like this in the world or in Mexico, but I thought, holy shit! I came in to eat at this place just because I thought it looked like a good place to eat, and I saw this sign that I've used on my YouTube channel for 15 years. Say no to drugs, say yes to tacos. Kind
So
of funny
people,
how that
so,
worked.
so people can look for that little profile icon as well when they're searching for you, because I want them to be able to find your content. And
Yeah.
speaking of tattoos, before we go, I noticed you just raised your hand, and you're the guy with the guilty pleasure.
Yeah, hold
Yeah,
that
look
up
at
to
that.
the camera.
How about that, folks? The guilty pleasure
Guilty pleasure. That's a direct
taken
lift from
directly from the
from the Broken Teeth album.
Broken Teeth
The
album.
devil
Which
on the cover.
we are in the middle of trying to release that on vinyl.
Ooh, please,
You heard it first here.
Please do.
Is that a big process to do that?
Well,
the work involved?
Well, there's a lot of people who are just enthusiasts, and you are an enthusiast. This is an enthusiast who loves that record, who, he's asking me, why isn't it out on vinyl? And I was like, well, do you think that it would sell if it came out on vinyl? When you decide to do a reissue of something that originally just came out on another format, and it hadn't been out on vinyl, and then the climate is asking for, man, that would be cool to have on vinyl. That would be cool to have on. This was a conversation, and I was like, well, I don't really know if I want to put thousands of dollars, because it's not like, hey, you throw a couple $100 and you have it on vinyl. It's a few grand to press a couple of hundred copies, and then you hope that they sell. And obviously, you aren't really looking to make your money back because you're going to give away a few to get the word out going. You know, you got to shake the tree to make fruit, you know. Um, so, you know, you hope that whoever invests in this project can at least get some of their money back, but it's usually not about that. So, after saying all that, it's like we don't really have the band fundage to just throw at it to do that just overnight. So every once in a while, someone will knock on the door and go, "Hey, I want to help you guys put this record or that record out on vinyl." We're like, "Holy shit, what a great invitation from someone who's just a fan who is an enthusiast who would want to do that and sort of on their own label kind of a thing." So this is how this is going to happen. So that was a great segue by good eye, Dave. I forgot that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well,
I forgot that Dan
notice
had the guilty pleasure tattoo,
Yep.
which he got after the record came out. That's actually not Dan's hand on
Right,
the album
right.
cover art
Right,
from
right.
2002.
No.
That
I
was
just got
act-
it last year.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the guilty pleasure, Broken Teeth guilty pleasure album cover was an afterthought. As like, well, how are we going to put the name of the album? What are we going to call the album, and where are we going to put it on the album? Well, you know, on the album cover, for those of you who are familiar, there's a devil face, and he's holding his fingers up as
Yeah, there it is
horns or
behind you.
something.
Yeah.
And he's
Right over my shoulder for anyone.
yeah, and so he's holding his arms up like this, and the flames are kind of covering his wrists. And I'm like, well, why don't we get rid of some of those flames and have it be on his wrist as a tattoo? That was actually, maybe only my one of my good ideas that everyone liked, and and so my buddy Bart Willis created, like, because he's a tattoo artist, he did like the classic tattoo lettering, you know, that you see Sailor John kind of stuff, right? And that's kind of where that comes from.
Awesome.
That's a classic tattoo font.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Wow. Well, Dan,
Thank you, Dan.
you've been awesome today. This is a great conversation. I really look forward to episodes like this when the guest has so much to offer and is so articulate and passionate as you obviously are. And again, for anyone listening, check out Dan Delaney's YouTube channel, Danbowski on YouTube. Lots of great stuff there. You'll spend hours listening to Dan talk passionately and about rock and roll and albums that he loves and bands' whole catalogs, and you'll even see some hiking videos. So with that, on behalf of Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, and our very special guest, Dan Delaney, thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Dan.
Thank you out there for listening to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.
Thanks, guys.